basically what we're going to do today is completely just rip off a video idea that I saw on Tomo F1 channel. I do love watching Tomo. He's done this great video that I found extremely interesting. We're going to cover which countries have won the most MotoGP world titles. Tomo did it for F1. When I saw it, I was like, that's super interesting. So thanks, Tomo. I will link to Tomo's video. Not that he needs my views, but it'll be at the end, so we can watch all the way to the end of this one first. Then we'll click on Tomo's video and go watch that one, because it's like it's a top class. Tomo does the best videos, alright? So go check him out. Before we start though, before we go any further, what I want people to do is jump down in the comments and tell me which country you think has won the most MotoGP world titles. And then based on that, I'm going to reply either how old I think you are or when I think you started watching MotoGP. Because it turns out countries just do this in blocks in MotoGP. Everybody gets a turn. We are going to go through it now. We're going to go from the least amount to the most amount. But quick heads up, only 6 countries have ever won MotoGP world titles. And again, if you can pick who the first one's going to be that only has one, then you get an extra prize, because I did not see that coming. But anyway, without any further ado, let's get into it. And the first of the 6 countries that have won world titles, and the only one-time winner, is Rhodesia and Nyasaland, or Nyasaland, or Rhodesia, okay? If you don't know where Rhodesia is/was, it's right here. The Rhodesian winner of a MotoGP world title was Gary Hocking in 1961. Now, Gary, fair play to him, also won the 350 World Championship that year. So he had a good year. Gary was born in Wales, but grew up in southern Rhodesia in what is now known as Zimbabwe. So whether Zimbabwe wants to take a claim for that, go ahead. The record books do state Rhodesia. That is a super interesting one, because who'd have thought that there is an African world champion? I didn't see that coming, and yeah, I thought that was pretty cool. As we go up now, up to the 5th most winningest country, and I'm going to be honest, I thought maybe we'd do better than second last, but it's Australia. Now, considering only 6 countries have ever won world titles, I think this is pretty impressive how many we've won. Australia has 8 world titles across 3 different riders. The most world titles was Mick Doohan, who, by the way, is criminally underrated in the GOAT chat. Alright, when you go back and look at his records and the amount of distance he used to win the races by, just saying. He won 5 from 94 to 98, and Mick is obviously one of my favourites of all time. With 2 world title wins, we've got Casey Stoner, 07 and 2011. Stoner, it could just be me as an Australian, but I just feel like he would have won more. I reckon he had a few more in the bag. I think he could have gone on and done incredible things. But look, he packed it in early, went home, spends time with his family. If you follow him on Instagram and stuff, you just see he just hangs out in his house just having fun all the time and going fishing and shit. So fair play to him. But you've robbed us of potentially going up a place in the rankings here, Casey. So thanks, mate. And the last one was Wayne Gardner, 1987, who you may recognise the name if you're new to MotoGP and you watch Moto2. His son is leading the Moto2 World Championship at the moment. So yeah, thanks, Wayne. Could have another Gardner coming up soon, so that'd be good. We're moving along now, and this is the one that I think a lot of the younger/newer viewers of MotoGP would have picked to be at least in their top 2 or 3 total world championships won, and that is Spain. Now, the Spanish, it turns out, are pretty new to this world championship business. They came through late. I mean, they've made up for it quite a while. But they've got 11 world titles. That makes them 4th on our list. Of course, the most being Marc Marquez. He's won 6, 2013 and 2014. 2013 obviously being his rookie year, and it also made him the youngest ever MotoGP world champion. He then missed a year there, and then from 2016 to 2019, he won another 4. And his story is still going, obviously. I think we're all expecting maybe a couple more by the time he's done. 3 world titles have gone to Jorge Lorenzo. His were a bit more spread out. He went from 2010, then did 2012 and 2015. He was the 2nd Spaniard to win a world championship. And then the one-time winners for Spain Alex Crivier, 99, he snuck in there after the Doohan years, just before the Rossi years. And of course, your COVID champion, Joan Mir, won it last season in what was a very entertaining season, and he'll be hoping to add to his tally as well. Now, here's a surprise one coming into the list. I did know that they produced a lot of world champions, but I didn't realise they'd won this many titles. Third on our nations list is the United States of America. They've produced the most amount of world champions. They have 7 world champions, and they all came in well, the most of them came in a really short period from the late 70s to the early 90s. Eddie Lawson's top of the bunch. He's got 4. He won in 84, 86, and then 88 and 89. Dominated those mid to late 80s. Kenny Roberts was the pioneer for the Americans. He won 3, and he was the first US winner. He won from 78 to 80. Wayne Rainey also won 3 from 1990 to 1992. Freddie Spencer is a good one because he won 2. He won in 83 and 85, but his win in 85, he also won the 250 World Championship, which was more common in the early days to race in both classes. But I think by the time we get to the mid 80s, I mean, I don't know this for a fact, but I think it was one of those things that was like, you didn't really do that. And for him to go and win both in the same year, I think that's big ups to Freddie. The one-time winners, we've got Kevin Schwantz in 93. We've got Kenny Roberts Jr. in 2000, another one that snuck in between the Doohan and Rossi years, so well done to him. And of course, Nicky's win in 06, and we all love Nicky, and we all love that season was awesome. I mean, I was a big Rossi fan, but I've never been so happy to see Rossi not win something as I was that year. I was super chuffed for Nicky. And that's the US. I mean, what a run they had. What a run they had from the 80s and 90s. 7 world champions. At number 2 on the list, it's the United Kingdom. I was going to separate the United Kingdom based on country, Scotland, Wales, whatever, but it turns out they're all English anyway. So really, it's 17 world championship wins for England. They have 6 world champions. They've got 3 4-time world champions, actually. And they are Jeff Duke, who won 51, and then he won 53 to 55. Very early. He was, I think, the 3rd ever world champion. In his first world championship, he won the 350s as well. So that was a bit more common back then to race in 2 different classes, and we'll get into that a bit later. John Surtees also won 4 world champions. Now, in my opinion, John Surtees has a real claim, like a really genuine claim, on being the greatest motorsport racer in history. Here's why. John Surtees won his first world championship in 1956. He then won 3 more between 1958 and 1960. All 3 of those, he also won the 350s. Then in 1964, he went and won the F1 World Championship for Ferrari. This man is probably the greatest racer of all time. The other 4-time world champion, also a real claim on greatest racer of all time, Mike Hailwood, Mike the Bike. Won 4 world titles from 62 to 65, also switched over to race F1, never won a world title in F1, it never really was that competitive, I don't think, but the fact that he did it, and Mike Hailwood, proper tough man's man as well. Just look at, I'll put the pictures up of him, just look at him. Then they have 2 2-time world champions. That's Phil Reed, who won 73 and 74. Then, a little gap in there to Barry Sheen, who won 76, 77. If you grew up in Australia watching motorsport like I did, Barry Sheen was like the voice of motorsport on your telly. And Barry Sheen was a hero of mine when I was a kid. Every single Barry Sheen livery / leathers / helmet combination was the best looking in MotoGP history. I'm telling you. That iconic number 7 with the dash through, in the circle, all those Suzukis back then were insane, and his leathers were so cool, and he had the helmet with his name on the back, punching darts on the grid and all that shit, you know. It was just proper lad, Barry Sheen. And settled down in Australia, took a job on telly, lived in Queensland, and it was a real hero of mine when I grew up. And if you can get a chance to read his, I think this is an autobiography that you can pick up. I read it when I was younger. It is a top read, super interesting guy. Just a proper Cockney lad. And then their 1-time winner and the first ever winner of a Premier Class title in MotoGP was Leslie Graham in 1949. So well done, Leslie. He was riding an AJS. I don't think they exist anymore. In fact, I'm pretty certain they don't exist anymore and haven't for a long time. First ever world champion. I do think that the actual trophy that you get, or the prize that you get for winning the MotoGP World Championship, is the Leslie Graham Trophy. I think. Don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty sure it is. And that's the UK done. Moving on to our winning nation. Top nation with the most world titles, 20 world championships spread between 6 world champions. And it is, of course, the Italians. Let's start at the top. It is Giacomo Agostini, who won 7 world championships from 1966 through to 1972. 5 of those world championships, he also won the 350s. On 7 world titles, of course, is Valentino. He won 2001 in his second season, straight through to 2005. Lost to Nicky 06, lost to Casey 07, won again in 08 and 09. Dare I say, robbed a bit in 2015? Oh, hot take. And then moving on from Valentino, Umberto Massetti, who was the second ever world champion in 1950 and then went on to win it again in 1952. Italy also has 3 one-time world champions. The greatest name on the list, one in 1957, that was Libero Liberati. Proper good name, that. In 1981, the Italians went back-to-back with 2 separate winners. It was Marco Lucinelli and Franco Uncini, 81-82. And that's it, guys. That's only 6 countries have ever won a world title. And without Gazza Hocking sneaking in there for Rhodesia, it'd only be 5. And they just win them in batches. Like I mentioned before, they win them in batches. The UK won 13 of their 17 in the first 16 years. They won another 4 in 5 years between 73 and 77 with Phil Reed and Barry Sheene. They've never won one since Barry Sheene, but they don't seem to be able to produce the riders anymore. I know they've got good riders in other classes. I will mention Johnny Ray because he's dominated World Superbikes technically from the UK. He's Northern Irish. So depending on your allegiance to an island, make of that what you will. The Italians, again, did it in sort of 2 batches. The Italians were the most spread out through, but 2 batches with Agostini, 60s and 70s, and then Rossi in the early 2000s, all the way through the 2000s. Theirs came in largely 2 big batches. The US, like I mentioned, from the late 70s to the early 90s, won almost everything. They only didn't win the world title 3 times from 1978 to 1993. Australia, Mick Doolan won all 5 of his in a row, so 5 of the 8 came from Mick in the 90s. I found that super, like when I first watched Tomo's video, which I will now link. When I first watched Tomo's video, and there's obviously this huge spread of countries that have won Formula One world titles. You know, everybody's had a crack, and they kind of just sporadically happen throughout the years. I don't know if that speaks to the more niche interest in MotoGP, and that Formula One's transcends a little bit more and is a bit more worldwide in that sense. I mean, maybe. But I don't know who I expected to see. Because I know that, like, the French haven't won one. Like, I knew all this stuff. I just don't know what I thought I was going to find here. But when it was that, it still surprised me. But anyway, that's it. I mean, I did find it interesting that Japanese have never won with a rider, despite the fact that they've won every season as a manufacturer since 1975, except for Casey Stoner's win in 07. Every single one's been Japanese manufacturer. And that's all I got for you today, guys. Thanks again for watching through the video. I will guess how long you've been watching MotoGP for based on what you've commented below if you did that. I had a lot of fun making this one. This is the most interesting video I've done so far, I think. And thanks to Tomo for the idea. I've just stolen that from you. But it was super interesting. It was a lot of fun. I'd love to do more of this kind of stuff. Grey out that red button down below. Subscribe. We've got more of this shit coming your way. Don't worry about it. And that's all I got for you today, guys. We'll see you on the next one.